Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. Life and works of Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou, one of leading American poetess of modern period, was born of Margaret Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri on April 4, 1928. She grew up in St. Louis and Stamps, Arkansas. She was an author, poet, historian, songwriter, playwright, dancer, stage and screen producer, director, performer, singer, and civil rights activist. She was best known for her seven autobiographical books, Mom and Me and Mom, Random House 2013. Letter to My Daughter, Random House 2008. All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes, Random House 1986. The Heart of a Woman, Random House 1981. Singin' and Swingin' and Gettin' Merry Like Christmas, Random House 1976. Gathered Together in My Name, Random House 1974. And I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Random House 1969, which was nominated for the National Book Award. In the year 1936, Angelou was sent back to St. Louis to live with her mother when she was 8 years old. Her mother's boyfriend raped her, leading to a major one-day jail sentence. When Angelou's uncles murdered him upon his release, her fear and guilt over naming her assailant led to nearly 5 years of muteness. Angelou was sent back to Arkansas once again, where she sheltered herself from the world and found comfort in reading classic literature and studying hard at school. Eventually, a loving neighbor helped her find her voice again. Angelou moved to San Francisco with her mother in 1940. She became the first black streetcar conductor in San Francisco at the age of 16. Around this time, she had a brief fling with a local teenage boy. 1 year later, she graduated from high school and subsequently gave birth to her only child, a son named Guy, while her mother embraced her newborn grandson. Angelou had to work hard to support him. She worked intermittently as a dancer, cook, waitress, and prostitute. A brief marriage and a prominent position as a dancer in a San Francisco club inspired her professional name, Maya Angelou. Angelou moved to New York City. The Harlem Writers Guild encouraged her budding literary talent, and she performed in several theatrical productions around the world. At one point, Angelou moved to At one point, Angelou moved to Ghana and worked as a journalist there. In 1966, she moved back to California and wrote scripts for television and film. She became one of the first black female screenwriters and directors in Hollywood. She was also a friend to both Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and she worked tirelessly for the civil rights movement. Inspired by her encounters with authors and editors, she eventually decided to turn the anecdotes of her colorful life into autobiographies. In 1969, her first published autobiographical work, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing, Things became a bestseller. In 1959, at the request of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Angelou became the Northern coordinator for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She turned to the United States in 1974 and was appointed by Gerald Ford to the Bicentennial Commission and later by Jimmy Carter to the Commission for International Women of the Year. She accepted a lifetime appointment in 1982 as Reynolds Professor of American Studies at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, Salem, North Carolina. In 2000, she received the National Medal of Arts, and in 2010, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. The first black woman director in Hollywood, Angelou wrote, produced, directed, and starred in productions for stage, film, and television. Angelou died on May 28, 2014 at the age of 86 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where she had served as Reynolds Professor of American Studies at Wake Forest University since 1982. An introductory note on the poem Caged Bird. The poem Caged Bird by Maya Angelou was first published in 1983's poetry collection Shaker, Why Don't You Sing? The poem describes the two opposing experiences between two birds. One bird is able to live in nature as it pleases, while the caged bird suffers in captivity. In the poem, the free bird flies towards the current. The bird appears to be dipping its wings in the orange sun rays. The free bird is sure to rule the sky. The caged bird endeavors to peep through its cage, fails. The caged bird's movements are restricted with wings clipped and feet tied. It craves for freedom, and its song could be heard in some faraway place. In some faraway place, the free bird thinks about other places where it can get more pleasant breeze as well as fat worms. The free bird is greedy and not content with whatever freedom it has. The caged bird's grave of dreams is his cage, and the bird's cry for freedom is pathetic. The caged bird's movements are restricted. It can neither move nor fly. Therefore, the caged bird sings a song, yearning for freedom and liberty. Annotation and explanations. Leaps means springs free. Downstream, in the direction of flowing a stream, river, breeze. Orange sun rays, the bird's free state of existence. Dares, unafraid of doing anything. Narrow cage refers to restricted life of a caged bird. Trade, a type of strong winds blowing towards the equator and then to the west. This wind facilitated the sailed ships to trade by sea between the western countries and the South Asian countries. Sighing trees, a hissing sound produced by the leaves of a tree when a strong wind blows. Summary of the poem Caged Bird is a free verse written by the American poet and civil rights activist Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou is widely regarded as the Black women's poet laureate. Her reflections on the society and the times she lived in are vividly expressed in her poetry. Outwardly, the poem Caged Bird, or I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, as it is often interchangeably known, can be seen as a reflection on social disparity and the ideals of freedom and justice. Angelou, with the metaphor of words, represents the inequality of justice seen in the society of her time, which differentiate between the African American community and its white American counterpart. Though her poem, she also illustrates the nature of both freedom and captivity by creating a stark contrast between the two, using words as the metaphor. The poem is divided into six stanzas, describing the state of two birds, where one is free and floats and dares to claim the sky, while the other is caged in his bar of rage. The first and the third stanza show the delight of the free bird experiencing freedom, whereas the rest of the stanza concentrate on the plight of the caged bird. Angelou puts greater emphasis on the lamentable state of the caged bird and contrasts this with that of the free bird. Although the poem Caged Bird has no definitive rhyme scheme, it creates the illusion of rhyme with the clever use of consonants. The enjambment in the poem draws the reader's eye to things of importance in a blunt manner. Critical analysis of the poem. The poem Caged Bird by Maya Angelou is lucid, straightforward, yet discreet in its comparison with the original world. The poem is also free from punctuation and contrasted in alternate stanzas. The poem is in the background of Jim Crow laws that was prevalent in the American South from 1890s to 1965 and was a formal codified system of racial segregation and apartheid. Legally, African Americans received separate but equal treatment. In actual practice, they were nearly always inferior to that of the whites. These Jim Crow laws affected almost all aspects of their daily life: public transport, parks, restaurants, toilets, schools, auditorium, etc. The effects of racial discrimination and inferior treatment have have been reflected by the caged bird who feels his wings clipped, feet tied and vision obstructed. The caged bird sings of freedom, which is parallel to the African American structure during the poet's time. The bird's frustration, depression, melancholy, and the fear of lifelong confinement touch the reader's hearts. The poem is framed on the contrasting stanzas and swings like a pendulum between the free bird and an caged bird. An encaged bird. Contrast is used to heighten the effect of differences of the two races. The first stanza of the poem depicts the pictorial beauty of the sky, the orange sun, rays on the breeze. The second stanza highlights the darkness, darkness, restricted movement, and vision. Again, the third stanza, perhaps the happy bird's selfish desire to find another breeze when the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. Thereafter, the poem, the caged bird's shadow, shouts on a nightmare stream, thus meaning the bird is so dejected and frustrated that he sees nightmares and scream. Finally, the caged bird continues to sing, which is faintly heard at the hills. This symbolizes the Afro Americans' continued struggle for equal rights. Stanza 1. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. The opening lines show a bird leaping on the back of the wind, demonstrating the freedom it experiences to move about and glide freely through the air. It hovers over a stream of wind and floats downwards to where the current of the stream ends and the wind is calm. It dips its wing in the sea of orange sunlight. The bird is shown in a state of great tranquility. It has the freedom to move about wherever it desires. It is so utterly free and without restraints that it dares to claim the sky. The whole firmament is his one big home. Stanza 2. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are cleaved and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. Here the poetess contrasts the situation by presenting the image of a caged bird. The caged bird tries to go after his cage in vain. The cage is narrow and its metaphorical bars are of rage. The caged bird is seen to be angry with its situation. It desires with all its heart to escape its plight, but the caged bird cannot see beyond his cage. Its wings are clipped, that is, its freedom is taken away. Wings are associated with flight, which in turn is associated with freedom. The words his wings are clipped mean that its freedom is forcibly taken away. A bird tied to the ground represents an image completely opposite to its true nature of flight. This represents the fact of alienation of the bird. But the most important thing is that despite being in this utterly despondent predicament, the caged bird opens his throat to sing. That seems to be his only joy and achievement life. Stanza 3. The caged bird sings with the fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill. For the caged bird sings of freedom. The caged bird has a wavering voice. He is singing of freedom, something he does not have. The idea of freedom is his dream, one he cannot achieve. So he sings about it, and there is fear in his voice. He had never known what freedom tastes like, but hopes to have it for his own. His voice can be heard from distant places on hills where it inspires others to dream of freedom. The caged bird doesn't sing of sadness but of hope, inspiration, and of freedom. Stanza 4. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. The free bird, on the other hand, revels in his freedom. He enjoys He enjoys flying through the trade wind that blows through the trees. Sighing trees probably refers to the sighing sound made by the breeze while passing through the leafy branches. It gives an indication to their lack of freedom, as the trees are also tied to the ground like the caged bird. The free bird thinks of that worm that will be his food, with the wind in his feathers, water and earth beneath him, and the whole sky with him. He feels majestic in his freedom and calls the entire sky his own domain. By names the sky is own. By names the sky his own. The poet wishes to express that the bird knows himself to be the proprietor of this whole universe. Here the sky, here the sky stands for the universe. Stanza 5. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow showers on a nightmare's scream. His wings are cleaved and his feet are tied. So he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird inversely knows that he is not flying in the sky, that he is not free, but a captive, a prisoner. He thus stands on the grave of dreams. He knows his dream of flying in a free firmament to experience freedom is futile. He had lost all hope of freedom. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. It is more pitiable, more adverse than a nightmare. His wings are clipped and feet are tied. There is only a little hope of freedom, and so the bird opens his throat to sing. The bird wishes to travel on against all adversities. There is a faint but kindling voice of hope in his song. Stanza 6. The caged bird sings with the fearful thrill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. This refrain recurring as a stanza justifies the bird's stout determination to keep going after his dream of freedom. Moreover, the caged bird chooses to sing as this is the only freedom available to him that he can enjoy without any restriction. His wings are clipped, feet are tied, but his throat is not choked yet. This is something the poet has failed at heart, and that's why she uses the title Caged Bird. This might be seen as the poet's message to raise our voice, to express ourselves, even though the stronger wants to suppress suppress the weaker, and to never ever give up, no matter what situation we are in. In many ways, the poem Caged Bird can be considered as the poet's personal expression. Maya Angelou can be regarded as the caged bird in the poem. A stanza in the poem is repeated to catch the attention to the idea of the caged bird singing for freedom. The poem uses a metaphor to compare caged birds to African Americans fighting for equality during the civil rights movement. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.